Nigeria was near collapse. That is the extraordinary claim made by Colonel Mohammed Mahaji, the military officer accused of involvement in an alleged plot to overthrow President Bola Tinubu's administration. In his first detailed explanation of what drove his action, Mahaji has attempted to present the alleged plot not as a personal ambition for power, but as what he described as an act of patriotism born out of frustration with the direction of the country. But his claims raise a much bigger question. How far can frustration with economic hardship, poor governance, and military warfare go before opposition to governments cross the line into an alleged attempt to seize power? Mahaji, according to a report by Premium Times, said his concerns about Nigeria had developed over a long period as he watched what he described as a gradual decline in the country. He said he loved the military and loved Nigeria, but became increasingly worried about the conditions of the nation. According to Colonel, the country was moving from what he described as a period of gradual decline towards a point where Nigeria was almost collapsing. That statement is particularly striking because it comes from 7 military officers accused of participating in an alleged coup plot against democratically elected governments. Mahaji said his concerns were not limited to what ordinary Nigerians were experiencing. He also pointed to the difficulties faced by military personnel, including soldiers involved in dangerous operations. He spoke about his own struggle to provide for his 5 children on what he described as a meager salary. For him, that personal experience became part of a much wider concern about the economic direction of the country. Mahaji reportedly questioned how many military families could still afford the kind of education that previous generations had access to, arguing that worsening economic conditions were making life increasingly difficult. But perhaps his most serious allegation concerned wounded soldiers. The colonel claimed that some injured military personnel receiving treatment at the 44th Nigerian Army Reference Hospital in Kaduna were not receiving adequate care. If established, such allegations will raise serious questions about military welfare and the treatment of personnel who have been injured while serving the country. But Mahaji's account goes much further. He admitted that the alleged group intended to mobilize military officers who shared similar concern about Nigeria's condition. However, he insisted that the plan had not reached the stage of execution when he was arrested. He said that there was no fixed date for the alleged operation and the group had not yet been fully formed. According to his account, the process was still at the mobilization stage, with attempts allegedly being made to identify more officers and soldiers who share the same concern. That distinction is important because it represents Mahaji's own version of events. The allegations against him remain an allegation, and his explanation does not by itself establish whether the wider claims about the alleged plots are true. He also reportedly denied foreign involvement. Mahaji claimed that he personally financed much of the alleged mobilization, while the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, was said to have contributed about 400 million naira. That claim, like other parts of his account, would require independent verification. The colonel also denied contacting some senior military officers and said that dissatisfaction within the military, combined with his own unsuccessful promotion attempts, contributed to the situation. He reportedly called for formal mechanism that would allow military officers to communicate their concern to the Chief of Army Staff without fear of punishment or victimization. His recommendations included better salaries, improved welfare packages, stronger pension benefits, better educational opportunities, and tougher measures against corruption. He also criticized the removal of fuel subsidy, arguing that the policy should have been implemented gradually rather than abruptly. And then comes, perhaps, the most revealing part of his statement. Mahaji appealed for leniency. He reportedly asked authorities to consider the fact that he and those accused with him were first offenders, saying their experience had changed their thinking. He insisted that the alleged actions were motivated by what he described as patriotism and love for Nigeria, rather than a desire to destabilize the country. But this is where the controversy becomes even more complicated. A democratic government cannot simply ignore genuine public frustration. Economic hardship, unemployment, insecurity, and poor welfare can create deep resentment across society, including within institutions responsible for defending the state. At the same time, dissatisfaction with government does not provide a constitutional license for military intervention. Nigeria's history provides a painful reminder of the consequences of military coups. Decades of political instability followed previous interventions, and the country eventually returned to democratic rule in 1999. That makes any alleged attempt to remove an elected government through unconstitutional means an issue of enormous national importance. The government and military authorities therefore face two separate questions. The first is whether the alleged coup plot actually existed in the form described by investigators and what role each accused officer played. The second is whether the concern raised by Mahaji about economic hardship, military welfare, and governance reflect wider problems that deserve attention regardless of the allegations against him. Those two questions should not be confused. A person accused of plotting against a government can still raise legitimate concern about conditions within the country. Any legitimate concern about governance cannot automatically justify an unconditional attempt to change government. Mahaji himself appears to recognize the seriousness of what happened. He appealed for authorities for pardon and said the experience had changed his mindset. He also said Nigeria remains the only country they have and the military remains their profession. The alleged coup plot reportedly came to light in late September 2025 and triggered major security and political consequences, including the cancellation of the October 1st Independence Day parade and changes within the military hierarchy. Now, Mahaji's account has added another layer to the controversy. Was it simply an alleged coup plot driven by officers seeking political change? Or was it a symptom of deeper dissatisfaction within parts of the military and wider Nigerian society? That question deserves serious investigation rather than speculation. Nigeria's democracy is tested not only by elections, but also by how the country responds when people become frustrated with the system. The challenge for authorities is to protect constitutional democracy while also confronting the grievances that can create dangerous levels of frustration. And for Nigerians, Mahaji's words raise an uncomfortable question. If a serving military officer can describe the country as being close to collapse, how seriously should government and society examine the problems he said pushed him to that conclusion? What do you think about Colonel Mohammed Mahaji's explanation? Do you believe his concern reflects genuine problems in Nigeria, or does his alleged involvement in a coup plot make his justification unacceptable? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more updates and analysis on Nigeria's biggest political and security stories. I'm Chimezrim Okoro, and thanks for watching.